Here.
Mr. Talley. Here. Mr. Rolo. Mr. Tedisco. Here. Ms. Blake. Here. Mr. Hilsinger. Here. Mr. Selma. Here. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Will the Commission and public please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first order of business tonight is the zone text change for Vessel, and so we're going to take 1, 2, and 3. Can we hear the call for that, please?
1, petition for zone text amendment on behalf of Vessel RE Holdings LLC and Vessel Technologies Incorporated. Applicant Andrea Gnomes, Esquire, agent. Applicants are requesting new section 44B Housing Opportunity District HOD to be added to the Cheshire zoning regulations pursuant to General Statute Section 8-30G. 2, petition for a zone change on behalf of Vessel RE Holdings LLC and Vessel Technologies Incorporated. Applicants Andrea Gomes, Esquire, agent. Applicants are requesting to place the subject property, 146 Realty Drive, in the HOD Housing Opportunity District pursuant to General Statute Sections 8-30G. Property located at 146 Realty Drive, Assessors Map 28, Lot 146. 3, application for a site plan approval on behalf of Vessel RE Holdings LLC and Vessel Technologies Incorporated. Applicants Andrea Gnomes, Esquire, agent. Applicants are requesting a site plan approval per General Statute Section 8-30G for a multifamily community for the property located at 146 Realty Drive, Assessors Map 28, Lot 146.
Okay, so this is our second public hearing. We kept this open the last time because of questions coming in. I do believe we got one question, but you guys are going to address it today. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. For the record, my name is Andre Gomes. I'm an attorney at Hinckley Allen. Commission will have to excuse my voice. This is not my normal voice, allergies being what they are this year. With me tonight are Michael Lloyd, Managing Director of Site Acquisitions for Vessel, Seamus Moran, our engineer, Thomas Graceffa, our landscape architect, and Mark Vertucci, our traffic engineer. You're correct, Mr. Chairman. At the last meeting, the commission did keep the public hearing open. It had requested a couple pieces of additional information. Visuals really is what it came down to. And then we did receive one question from one of the commissioners in the interim since the April 24th meeting. The commission also had continued the hearing so that the applicant could work with town staff to craft the conditions of approval that the applicant had agreed to at the last hearing. So without further ado, in the hopes of being efficient, Mr. Chairman, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run through the supplemental information, but we do have our team here if any questions do come up.
Perfect.
So I will note that we did work with Mr. Glidden, and a big thank you to him for working with me on that in drafting the proposed conditions of approval. Nothing new there. They're the conditions of approval that the commission has before them tonight, and they're what we discussed at the last hearing. Including the adoption of the alternative plan, which the commission has on the screen here, incorporating those additional parking spots. We also, as I mentioned, Commissioner, we did receive one question from the commission. Commissioner Downs had submitted to Mr. Glidden, which was then passed on to the applicant, a question about 2 of the proposed plantings on our planting list. Apparently, they were not native. We apologize for that oversight. So what we did is we included an additional condition of approval. The commission has that in its draft motion. I believe it's number 6, number 8. So it's proposed condition of approval number 8. And what we did there was simply take the 2 non-native plantings and sub them out for native plantings that were already shown elsewhere on our site. Moving on, the commission had asked for some images or swatches of the proposed exteriors. Commissioner Bricado, I believe you in particular. So what we did is we've provided a couple of images here. This is the all-white building that Vessel had originally proposed with its original application. Here is what it would look like if it were all white with the wood detailing that Mr. Levy had shown at the last meeting. And this is obviously not the building proposed for 146 Realty Drive, but we did want to show the commission an all gray building without the wood detailing. This is actually the building in New London that's currently under construction. And here is that building that we had discussed at the last meeting, which is the all gray with the wood detailing. And of course, if I'm going too quickly, please let me know. And here are the swatches, electronic swatches as it may, the light gray and the wood paneling for the exterior. I believe the condition of approval that's currently drafted and proposed is the all gray with the wood paneling, but we defer to the commission if they want to go all white, all gray, white with wood paneling. Vessel was amenable to what the commission preferred on that end. The commission had also requested, and this was the last to do on our list, visuals of the interiors of the proposed units. So what we did, we didn't get any, take any photos of the interiors in the Trenton, New Jersey building, different building, different look from what's being proposed here. But we do have some interior renderings. Here's, I guess this is an exterior, but you have a view of entering the building in that stairwell. And this is a view of the apartment unit, a one-bedroom apartment unit, walking into the unit. You see the living area and the kitchen area further in the back. As Mr. Levy mentioned at the last hearing, all of the doors that separate the living area from kind of the central portion to the bedroom can all be opened. So depending on the tenant's preference, you can kind of live studio style, if you will, or keep things closed. But if you were to open the doors in between that kitchen area and where the closet and the washroom are, this is the view you get of that hallway. Same vantage point. You're standing there, you're turning to the right. You're looking at a portion of the kitchen, and here you are standing in that central hallway looking toward the bedroom with those two doors opened. And here is a view of the bedroom, which is at the furthest end. And this is the most insightful visual for me, if you will, which is an aerial view of the entire unit. You enter the unit from the right-hand side, again, walk into that living space, the kitchen space. You have the washroom and the closet space in the entry and the building to the far left. And this is very similar to what you would find, except essentially in double the size, if you will, or doubled for a two-bedroom unit. So with that, that is all we had on our list of to-dos, Mr. Chairman. I promised short and sweet, and I actually did for once. So if the commission has any other questions, we're happy to answer, but I'll just conclude by thanking the commission for its time. And again, reminding the commission, 830G standard here is no substantial public health and safety issues. There have been none that have been presented with this plan. Our team of experts have addressed that, so we'd respectfully request the commission's approval.
Okay. With the approval, we're going to have to choose what color we want to see this building, or is that, I mean, it's coming in as the white, you said, the white and gray?
So the proposed, and of course I defer, I'm not trying to cut off.
I'm just asking the question, like, if we, I would assume we're going to vote on this tonight. Do we need to pick a color, or is that something that could be done administratively, or?
So condition number 5 of the motion to approve, the building exterior color shall be gray with wood tone panels. If the applicants wish to change the building color, request is to be made in writing to the commission with a color sample of substitute materials. Proposed change may be approved administratively by staff as provided in condition number 7 below. With commission input, new public hearing for said request shall not be required.
So Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yeah.
based on the feedback that we received from the commission at the April meeting, what Mr. Glidden and I did was just put in the gray. Again, Commissioner Mercado, I think you had indicated you preferred the gray with the wood paneling. Some color. So that's how we drafted the proposed condition. If the commission wants the white with the wood, I think the commission can simply amend the proposed condition as it's deliberating on the application.
Okay. I was going to go to Ricardo next because he was the one that brought it up. So
Yeah, so these look really nice. I love the wood paneling. The image that you have with the white has like a sunset coloring to it, so it almost looks tan,
Okay,
which goes really nice with the wood,
okay.
better than the gray. But
Okay.
the wood paneling is very nice. I like that. I hope everybody else here can see that. That brings a little contrast and lets it fit in a little better.
Sure, appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you.
Mr. Natali.
I have two things, one for the applicant, one for staff. So the first thing for the applicant, I watched the hearing again last night. And I'm still trying to understand how the HOD district benefits the town. I understand that it helps make it a conforming property, so it's easier for the current owner or future owners to get financing, but what does it do for the town?
So it does more than just the financing, Commissioner, but, and of course, I defer to Mr. Glidden on this, but I will say it makes it easier for the town from an enforcement perspective. So you have a written, I'll call it body of law, if you will, although it's a written regulation that if anything ever comes up, which again, it's never our intention to, we intend to comply with our plan, which complies with the regulation, Mr. Glidden or his successor or the person after that or whomever it may be, and keep in mind, sometimes these things come up 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line, you have a regulation that governs this zone, which applies to this site, and it is easier to enforce instead of having to comb through the record, figure out what happened, and certainly Mr. Glidden can weigh in on that. I'll also remind the commission that we filed this 3-part application, not only because it's the way the applicant prefers to file it, it's a cleaner approval, if you will, but it was filed in conjunction with the advice of the commission's counsel and town staff. So it's kind of a trifecta, if you will, for the reasons why it should go forward. And I'll leave it to Mr. Glidden to correct me if he disagrees.
Good?
Everything Andrea said is correct.
Okay.
We're in full agreement. And she's correct. So when this applicant first approached my office, I contacted Jeff D'Onofrio, the town attorney, to kind of review the appropriate way that the 830G application would come in versus one option would be a site plan without the text amendment, then you have an issue with nonconformities moving forward. The clean version, the conservative version is that you have the 3-part application. So the other key to it is you have a regulation, you have amendment to the zoning map, and then you have a site plan that conforms to those standards that have been developed.
Gotcha. I said I had one more item for staff. I would just like, if you could, for everybody that's here and for anybody that's not here, go through again why we're here and what 830G, how 830G limits what this commission can do.
So 830G is the Affordable Appeals Statute, which basically says communities are required to have 10% of their total housing stock be considered affordable as defined by statute. Cheshire is a community, we are below our required 10%. We are at 3.58%. So what that means is an applicant or anyone could propose a development that under 830G, they don't have to meet the zoning requirements. And for the purposes of developing affordable housing units. As a requirement, 30% of the total number of housing units that are associated with an application under 830G are required to be deed restricted. 15% are aimed at individuals or households making 80% of the area median income. 15% are aimed at individuals or households making 60% of the area income. When a community is reviewing an 830G appeal, there are only 3 ways or 3 conditions that the commission has authority over to say no to an 830G. One is a public safety issue, meaning, for example, if we had comments from the fire department on this application that said there isn't sufficient water pressure, there isn't area for a laydown for our trucks, they can't get to the site, that's a public safety concern. If we had a traffic concern, meaning it didn't have adequate sight line or it was an unsafe traffic condition, that would be a reason to say no, provided it's documented by an expert, meaning the fire department, a civil engineer. The other is water pollution control, meaning you don't have, the toilets can't flush. In this application, the applicant has gone to the WPCA, the Water Pollution Control Authority, and has received approval. So you've met those 2 bars. The last one is environmental, but it has to be an environmental condition that outweighs the need for affordable housing in the community. And that bar is extremely high to cross. In the case of this site, there are no inland wetland soils present within the site. There were no species of concern or anything that would like trigger that consideration for an environmental condition that would outweigh the need of affordable housing. So, I mean, the law is very clear on your role. So in this case, you know, the applicant has done a great job of documenting all the areas of which have been addressed. And the fire department, the town engineer, the town attorney, all have reviewed, along with my office, the submittals, and there were no documented public safety issues or others that under the law would warrant this commission to say no.
Gotcha. And thank you. And again, I thought it was important to get that out there. I want to make sure that, you know, everybody in the public knows that our hands are truly tied because the applicant met those three conditions. So we don't really have a choice in the matter. So I just wanted to get that out there.
Follow up on the HOD. You put the HOD in place. 830G says you can roll over any regs that we have. 5-10 years from now, why doesn't 830G roll over the HOD that you just created? I mean, it's almost like you're putting in a text for no reason because 830G just wipes it out. So I don't understand why we need to add this text amendment.
You want to start?
Commissioner, I don't know if you wanted me to take a stab at that or Mr. Glidden. I mean, I can start, and forgive me, I'm not quite sure what you mean, Commissioner, by rollover, but let's say an applicant comes down the line and wants to file another 830G. They're going to do it one of two ways. One of three ways, excuse me. One, they're going to file just a site plan with the commission, and the commission will evaluate it for the same public health and safety concerns. Number two, they'll do what we've done here, which again provides the applicant with a conforming use and the staff with a body of law, a regulation that they can easily enforce going forward. And they do the three-part application, text amendment, zone change, site plan, which the commission will address under the 830G standard, really having nothing to do with what we've done here. The third way technically would be, let's say you have an applicant who comes forward and says, you know, I like the way this HOD was drafted. My site seems to apply to the HOD, which again, we crafted the HOD so that it's exceptionally narrow. I'm not sure there would be another site, and if it is, it's right nearby.
It's directly
Then the-
across the street.
Potentially, right, exactly. So if the applicant came in and wanted to come in under the HOD, they would come in and say it would be a site plan only. They would maybe decide if their site plan couldn't adhere to the HOD as currently written, or as if hopefully the commission approves, they might decide to tweak the HOD. But again, there's no rolling over because the commission will be looking at all of those potential future applications, whether or not they ever happen, in a vacuum, if you will. Commission's going to be looking at those as brand new. And I'm not trying to beat a dead horse here, but again, we're providing the HOD not only because it benefits the applicant, which it does, it's a cleaner application, it's easier to enforce, and staff and town attorney agreed.
Yeah.
And there's nothing in the HOD that makes it easier for any other property on the street to be developed that's very similar to this property. You'd still have to come in under 8-30G. It doesn't matter. It's just a cleaner way to do it. There's no advantage for
Correct.
the HOD to be there.
No
So
advantage. The legal standards.
You don't have to
the same.
understand it, but our town attorney said it was right. So, I mean, that's the way that he said 90-something% of them are all done this way. So
Yeah, I think it's been done in over 50, if not 60 municipalities in the last 30 plus years. And it's the preferred way. We're seeing more and more actually town staff and town attorneys pushing for this, whether or not we want it, which again, 90% of the time, it's the better way to go forward.
The 830G statute also applies to zoning change as well, or text change. Didn't at one point, didn't you not mention that there was Michael, allowing for the zoning text change as part of the statute?
That's correct. It gives it, so they have as Attorney Gomes pointed out, they have the three avenues. They could propose a new reg, they can just ignore your regs, or they can modify your existing regs. That's kind of all three, no pun intended, vessels that are available for an applicant to apply for a 830G approval.
Right, and
Or
the zoning,
application, I
so
should say.
the zoning text portion or the map change is embedded with 830G as well.
Correct.
If I may, Commissioner, it's subject to the exact same legal standard. One application, 3 parts. This commission is subject to 830G. So the substantial public health and safety standard that we discussed last time and Mr. Glidden summarized applies to the text amendment, the zone change, and the site plan.
In other words, we can't say no to the first two anyways.
Absent
Other
Other
than public
other than
safety
the
issue.
condition of public safety, health,
Absent
and-
of a public safety issue, yeah.
For the
Right.
HOD?
yes,
Absent,
that's,
absent of a public safety issue, yeah. That would be the advice that staff, and if Jeff was sitting next to me right now, would say, tell you.
All right, Commissioner, any other questions? Yes, Mr. Tesco.
I mean, this would certainly be a hard application to pass if we didn't have 830G in the way. This is it's a brand new type of building for this town. We really have nothing like this in the town right now. So two thoughts. One is a simple one. I think the applicant mentioned at the last hearing that they plan to have a manager on site. And I think that while I've been advised that I probably can't ask for that to be a condition of approval, it'd at least be nice to hear a commitment from the applicant that in fact they will have a manager on the site. There's going to be 70 different apartments. That's going to be a lot of people with questions and issues that make, or maybe none, but there could be. And having somebody there to answer those questions, people will look to us someday to say, what did you try to do to make sure that people could live there comfortably? I think one way is having a manager on site, preferably in a non-rate restricted apartment, so we don't lose one of the 21 apartments, which is not really very many, but be that as it may, we wouldn't lose one of those. So it'd be nice to hear that there's that kind of a commitment from the applicant. The second one is, again, because this is a new kind of building, and this sounds like a silly question to people out there. You're going to say, well, of course they're going to say yes to this, but I think it's helpful if the applicant, and especially since you have a different kind of construction than a lot of other constructions, you build part of it off-site, bring it and put it together on-site. I'd like to hear from the applicant that indeed this is a safe building. It's a safe building. We don't have any 5-story buildings with people in them in Cheshire right now. I think the people would like to hear from the applicant that, yeah, this is a safe building. It's not going to blow over in the wind or fall down on people. I mean, we've all heard about buildings falling down in different parts of the country. They're older buildings, but they were built out of compliance. But it'd be nice to hear, in addition to the comment about the manager, if they're willing to do that, a statement that, yes, indeed, they're confident that this is a safe building for the people who are going to live in it.
Sure, Commissioner, not a problem. So I'll start with the manager, as Vessel calls it, the community caretaker. And I apologize if there was a confusion. It is not set in stone, if you will, that the community caretaker is on site. What Vessel does is they've created this Vessel University. They take someone from the community. It could be a resident of the proposed building. It could be someone who lives down the street, 2 miles away, but they try and find someone in the community who's invested in the community, and they go through this entire training process with Vessel. They call it Vessel University. I believe it's actually patented, but they go through this entire process, and they are the first point of contact in the same exact way that any other multifamily building of this size would likely have a property manager, right? R.M. Bradley is a big property manager in the Hartford area, for example. So let's say a resident has a clog or something like that, or a water leak or a light out. They could contact this community caretaker. The community caretaker, having gone through Vessel University, will then do one of two things. Either call, I guess one of three. If the community caretaker has the expertise, right, he or she happens to be an electrician or something, they can fix that potentially. If not, they'll do what any other property manager does, which is hire someone to come in and address the issue. If it is a greater issue, something that can't just be handled simply, or it doesn't meet the protocol of just calling in an electrician, a plumber, whoever it may be, they'll elevate it to Vessel proper, and they will address the situation. You know, if there's something more pertinent that needs to be addressed, that can't just be simply addressed. So yes, there will be a community caretaker. He or she may not necessarily live in the building. They might, but they might not. And we'd ask that the commission allow Vessel the flexibility to select someone, because they're really trying to look for someone who wants to be in the community and invested in the proper management of this property. So that's the community caretaker. As far as the safe building, yes. And I will say, the first thing I'll point the commission to is we have a letter. I believe it's the exhibit to our application submission letter in our original application. And it's from a professional engineer who confirms unequivocally that the building has been designed to comply with the applicable Connecticut State Building Code, Connecticut Fire Safety Code, and Connecticut Fire Prevention Code, excuse me. So we have a fully code compliant building. That's how Vessel designs its buildings. And then going even a step further, Vessel has designed a steel building, fully sprinklered with no VOC panelized materials, very high-tech monitoring systems that will alert Vessel if something greater happens, if a sprinkler goes off or something along those lines. So the building certainly is safe. And Commissioner, you had noted the 5-story building. I would just remind the commission there are 5-story buildings, 20, 30, 40 in larger cities that are far older and constructed in a far less advanced manner than this building will be. And they're code compliant and safe.
Right, I was waiting to hear somebody from the company say that. You're their attorney. I believe you. I read the letter. Everything you just said is in the letter. I was waiting for somebody from the company to say what you've just said.
So I'll ask Michael, do you have anything to add? Unfortunately, Mr. Levy couldn't be here tonight. He sends his regard to the commissions, but Michael, do you have anything you want to add?
Good evening, Commissioners. Michael Lloyd, Vessel Technologies. Attorney Gomes is correct in everything that she said. It's fully our intent to select a caretaker from the Cheshire community. Community relations are extremely important to us. We hope we can find somebody. We believe we will be able to. Attorney Gomes is correct that it would be terrific if we could find somebody who ended up being one of our residents. That's not always possible. But to your question, Commissioner, that's absolutely our intent. And as far as Attorney Gomes talks about the health and safety of our building, we believe it's amongst the safest and healthiest buildings on the market today.
Thanks, Michael.
Mr. Dawson, you have a question?
Very nice presentation, by the way. I thought that you did a very thorough job. My question is that pretty much pre-engineered?
The building itself?
Yes.
Yes, much of it is prefabricated, if you will, which is why we're able to bring the materials for the construction to the building in as little as 10 truckloads. And I think the actual building envelope goes up in as little as 10 days. Much of it is prefabricated offsite.
So it's all staying pre-engineered, right?
Correct.
Okay, that's very good. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, any other commission members? No, anyone from the public wishing to speak on this? Okay, just need come up to the mic, name and address for the record.
Tim Slocum, 1285 Lilac Court. Mine is not a recommendation to refuse this application. Mine is simply a question. I think the legislation is flawed because the math is no good. But I would like to ask the town planner where this leaves the community based on what 10,000 households. Where does this leave the count of deeded affordable units?
So just bear with me. I have the number, our current numbers.
I don't think it's going to help too much.
It's not going to help. I
Well,
mean,
I guess that was my expected answer. And I just think the community also needs to know this because its communities are somewhat hostage to legislation like this, as are the builders, as I would understand. They have to make their project affordable. So they're not going to invest in building this unless more of them are affordable and the rents are higher, above market rate or whatever. So it's not your issue, but I think it's a state issue. I think it's a resident issue. And I just have always thought it was terribly bad legislation. If the intent really is to make properties and rentals ownership affordable. I mean, that's just a fact. And I have nothing more to say. I just wondered where we would stand. Probably under 1,000.
so for deed restricted units, currently houses, we have 17. However, we have approval for 20% up on Hazel Drive out of the 112. I'm going to test my math quick on the spot. And you have 40 that are going to be with Jack's Farms that was approved by the commission. And And we have another 16 on East Mitchell. So total, we've approved quite a additional amount of deed restricted units would go towards that total number under 830G, which then if the community can demonstrate you made strides, we can apply for what's called a moratorium, which then basically puts a pause on 830G. And that's something we'll look into at a very near date in the future.
So actually to probably achieve the number, you'd need about 1,000 deed restricted properties in town. If there's 10,000 households.
To make the 10%?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, you're correct. I mean, it's a large number, actually. We have it in our, to provide, Cheshire needs to provide 10% of the total housing units. Cheshire needs to add, this is the numbers according to our affordable housing plan, 628 affordable housing units to the existing housing stock.
It's not a way to build a rocket ship, but thank you. Thank you for your time.
Okay, I saw another hand up there. Onto the mic and name and address for the record.
Mike Salamone, 659 Cornwall Avenue. My only comment, been doing this for a lot of years, is instead of trying to project out the next 15, 20, 30 years, because these regs have changed over time, can the committee just look at this specific project and walk before we run? That's my only comment.
I don't think I understand.
Well, you're changing the whole regulation, right?
It's not us changing it. They're coming in under a state regulation, which is 8-30G, which was explained by,
Mike, please, if you're going to
Yeah.
speak.
My only comment is, can you keep it specific to this site and treat the next site the same way you're treating this one, going through this whole process?
they would all have to be. Anyone coming in with an 8-30G at a different site would have to go through the same process that this applicant is going through.
Okay, but you're trying to change the reg for that whole
We're
zone.
not,
Or you're trying to
no,
update the regs.
no. This is just, they're coming in, it's confusing, but it's not. They're coming under 8-30G, which as was stated before, really limits this commission because Cheshire does not have the housing stock, the affordable housing stock that they need. And it's 10% of our stock that we need to have. Otherwise, it'll be continue to have 8-30G come in. It's nothing we can do. We're not changing our regulation to invite this in. It's already forced upon us,
Right.
basically.
Oh, thank you.
So we're not changing existing regs, we're really adding a regulation. I think that's more accurate, isn't it?
I would agree.
Yeah, the existing regulations dealing with different zones and such in the town are not being changed by this. This is just a new regulation in addition for this purpose.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Okay, yep. You have another question?
Good evening. Doug Noble, 30 Jesse Court. First, I would like to correct Attorney Gomes, we're a town, not a city. So you mentioned in cities with high rises that you're putting in this town, Cheshire. Okay. This is more of a question for the engineers and the applicant. What's the maintenance program for the building? I don't want to see a dump and run. You build this building, 10 years goes by, it starts getting dilapidated. We got to look at it every day. So what's going forward? What's the plan for maintaining these buildings you're putting up?
What's the plan of maintaining the building?
Yeah. So in other words, people put up a building and then they just kind of like, well, it looks good. And then there's no maintenance program. Because I work in a lot of older buildings and, if the maintenance isn't done well, a lot of things fall apart and then, maybe it's cheaper to demo or it's an eyesore for the town. So I just want to know if there's a maintenance program with this group with Vespi or what's the name of the company? Vessel. Do they have a maintenance program for 10 years down the road? It's a renovation project.
Yeah, the question was asked to us. And then,
The owner of
do you have multiple questions or is that your only question?
That would be my only question.
Okay,
Is there
well,
a
the
maintenance
way we do it, the question gets asked to the commission. And then if that's your only question, then I'm going to have someone, Ms.
Yes.
Gomes,
Yeah, if
whoever.
they can come up here and please correct. That'd be great.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the maintenance plan, there's no specific maintenance plan that we have in the record other than what you have on the plans already. Mr. Moran can certainly testify to some of the maintenance of the infrastructure and things like that. But Vessel will maintain the building as any other multifamily developer would maintain the building. They're going to make sure that things are operating correctly, that things are clean, that things are safe. And in fact, again, I spoke about this last time, the applicant has a legal presumption in its favor that it's going to comply with its plan, which is the provision of safe, beautiful, economical housing. In terms of the comment about the city, I just explaining to the commission, I'm fully aware Cheshire is not a city. It was a comment requesting about the safety of high rises, and I was just making the comparison that there are high rises in cities that are perfectly safe. If the commission has nothing else, I'll sit. I see Commissioner Bricado.
Mr. Bricado did have a question, so
Your selection for towns that you're going to come into, how did you pick Cheshire? Why did you pick Cheshire to come in with 830G here? What was your thought process?
And actually, I'll ask Mr. Lloyd to come up if he has anything to add. Vessel, I'll say this, and then Mr. Lloyd can supplement if need be. First of all, it's looking at where the housing is needed. As Mr. Glidden said, Vessel's under 4% of meeting that 10% thresholds, so it's subject to 830G. And then finding good sites that we think are in good areas and appropriate for this type of development. I don't think there's any magic as to why Cheshire was number X, whatever it may be. I know that Vessel is looking throughout the state to develop housing. I was actually at an event with the Commissioner of Housing where the Commissioner of Housing spoke, and she explained that the state's goal is to develop, I think, don't quote me on this, something like 6,400 affordable units within the next couple of years. So Vessel is one of the developers who has heard that call, knows that there's a need. It aligns with the mission. And Cheshire was one of the communities that they found an appropriate site. I know, and Mr. Glidden can speak to this, that before we ever got involved in the Cheshire process, Mr. Levy had sat down with and met with Mr. Glidden and perhaps other members of town staff to discuss the application and to discuss the site. So some of the wrinkles, so to speak, were worked out, and it just seemed like an appropriate town, an appropriate time to come through with this proposal.
Mr. Natale, question?
Yeah. Mr. Slocum spoke. I just thought about something too. So for us to get to 10%, that's a big hill to climb. Yeah, we'll probably never get there because of 830G. The developers are allowed to come in and build just a portion of the property as affordable, as opposed to the whole property as affordable. So this is 70 units, and how many are going to be affordable? 21?
30%, I believe 21.
So only 30% of these properties or this property will be affordable. Mr. Glidden mentioned other properties also in town. Same thing. They build the bare minimum number of affordable units and the rest are at market rate to make some money. So these properties are built on locations that otherwise could not accommodate 70 units or 50 units or 150 units. But because of 830G, I've heard the words rolled over, ignoring our regs, forced, all those words are right. Yeah, I want to thank Mr. Slocum for bringing that up because it made me think about that.
Any more from the public? Yeah.
Pam Salamone, 659 Cornwall Avenue. So to the commission, I guess you asked the questions back. I found the answer to maintenance, and I think what the other gentleman, Doug, was talking about was how do we know that the outside of this building, we get the inside, we get that they're not going to let the building fall down on residents and have a problem. How do we know that the outside is not going to become an eyesore? And what legal requirements do they have to keep that up? And I really prefer that coming from an owner to realize that we're dead serious about this. We don't want an eyesore in town. Unacceptable.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Andre Gomes, counsel for the applicant. The outside, certainly, again, going back to enforcement, right? We have the town has the continued ability to enforce the application if the town sees that the maintenance of the infrastructure is not in line with the approved plan, if the landscaping has not been maintained in accordance with the planting plan, and the list goes on and on and on, it has the authority to enforce the application. And really, I'll just note, that's the same of any development of any size, of any use in any town, frankly. So saying we don't want an eyesore, I understand that, but you'd have the same exact answer whether we were developing a grocery store, a gas station, a two-family home, or a single-family home. It comes down to enforcement and whatever blight ordinances or anything else that the town may have in place that the town could then use to enforce.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak on this? No? Commission members, one last time? Oh, sure. Come on up to the mic.
Chairman, Robert Ham, 633 Cortlandt Circle. It's just a question. I don't know enough about all of these details, but it seems to me that we have the state telling the town of Cheshire what it has to do through this 830G regulation. And I have to ask this question. What happens if the town says, no, we're just not going to do it? Because I see a top-down bureaucracy telling us what to do. And just listening to this discussion here again, without understanding all the background of what goes on behind all of the development work, it sounds to me like we're squeezing an awful lot of things into an awful lot of boxes that maybe don't fit. Thank you very much.
If we were to say no, I'll take a stab at it. It's up to the town and the commission to defend itself. And the reason why we need one of the three reasons that Mr. Glidden spoke about before: public safety, environmental. I forgot what all three of it. We would need one of those reasons to deny this. And quite frankly, I don't see it. Our town attorney doesn't see it. I don't know if anyone else up here sees it, but
They've mandated this to us, and I'm not sure they have adequate reason to do that.
I'm not, you're barking at the wrong commission. It's somebody else that made this, and it's not us. I'm sorry, but it's. Go, Mr. Tedesco.
Sir, what would happen is if we denied it, they can take what's called an administrative appeal to the Superior Court, and we couldn't prove our case, and the court would order us to do it. We lose in court.
Like when the lawyers answer the questions. Thank you.
You'll get my bill.
To the town, please. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Okay. Commission members are all set. You're all set with your comments?
Nothing further. Thank you to the commission for its time and patience.
Okay, we're going to close the public hearing. All right, moving on to petition for zone text amendment on behalf of the Cheshire Planning and Zoning Commission for adding cannabis licenses. Can we hear the call for that, please? No, we're gonna do this now. So we need the call for.
Petition for a zone text amendment on behalf of the Cheshire Planning and Zoning Commission. Applicant was requesting an additional to section 30, 75 to 82. Uses to be added are cannabis licenses as outlined in PA 21-1 and adding the definitions to section 23.
Thank you. Okay, this is our public hearing. This is basically your night. We have done a lot of talking about this, and we want to hear from the public. It's nice to see some butts in the seat here to give us the community's advice or questions, comments, whatever you might have. So I usually don't do this. I mean, it doesn't look like a crazy room, but if somebody goes on and on and on and on, I have the right to limit you to 3 minutes. I'm trying not to do that. It doesn't look like a huge crowd. So unless any of the commission members have anything they would like to say before we get started, the floor is the public. So we're here to listen to you tonight. So anyone that wants to come up and speak at the mic, the same way you need we need your name and address for the record. You could form a line. You could do any way you want. Yeah, whatever
Mr.
makes it
Chairman,
quicker.
Michael, is the proposed, what we had talked about previously, available for them to read ahead of time to limit questions?
It's always been available, but
Yeah, they could, if they want a copy of the regs, they can email our office. We can share that with them directly.
Okay. I figured that just eliminate a lot of questions and concerns right off the bat.
Sure.
I'm sorry, Mr. Glidden, just for clarification too, we're not only talking about the sale of cannabis and hybrid license, we're talking about other licenses also for cultivators, micro cultivators, delivery. And could you just get
So-
that out there for
so
what
you-
the scope of this is?
We already allow micro cultivators by special permit in industrial zoning districts, provided they meet the locational standards. We did that about this time last year. But there's, as part of Public Act 21-1, there is a whole slew, about 11 licenses, anywhere from delivery service to packaging companies, label makers, large-scale grow operations, food and beverage manufacturers, et cetera. And the way that these regulations were crafted after considerable workshops by the commission, we put them as specially permitted uses in the industrial zoning districts for all those other licenses. The retail, however, and the hybrid, we put some locational standards, meaning they have to be within 1,000 feet of 84, 691 industrial zone properties, or properties that are zoned C3 and that have frontage, or B3, I'm sorry, that have frontage on Meriden Road or 322. And the last thing within the area, let's call it this middle swath, the industrial zoning districts, is that any licenses that are approved, whether they're retail or hybrid means that you can be a medical dispensary and a retail, those have to be separated from each other by 3 miles, which means only one in that area. So
If you look at the area. it
if
means
you look at
only
the
one.
area.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry, sir.
Well, that's fine. Vincent Flynn, 250 Weatherside Road. I'd like to speak to sort of the global issues that we're looking here. My family moved to Cheshire in 1996. At that point in time, this town was a very quaint New England town, very much into traditional family values. And I think that we're going to pass over a Rubicon here if we approve the sale of cannabis in the town of Cheshire. I think it's a very big move, and it's one that's very inconsistent with the values that have exemplified this town through all the years I've lived here, and I'm sure prior to my arrival. And the reason I say this is because of what's happened in Massachusetts with the adoption of cannabis sales in that state. We go a lot of times to the Lee and Lenox areas of Massachusetts, the Norman Rockwell country. It is now wall-to-wall marijuana dispensaries. The ambiance of that area, traditional New England, is being ruined by the retail sales of marijuana. You're out on a weekend morning, you see people lined up in front of the dispensaries there. It's akin to a liquor store in a Skid Row neighborhood. And this is in these quaint, touristy New England towns. And when you get up there, before you get there, you drive through the Springfield Holyoke area, wall-to-wall billboards promoting marijuana sales. Is that what this town is all about? I mean, I know it's 2023. I know the state's made some decisions we may or may not agree with. That's our decision. I know many towns around here have decided they don't want to have marijuana sales, which means if we do it, we will be a magnet. And I understand they're trying to limit it, and they'll be only up in certain areas, but it's going to bring in traffic. A 5-story apartment building we're going to approve tonight. You may have your hands tied, but it's going to happen. I mean, I drive by Veron Rondo. I know what a magnet location looks like, and it's going to draw a lot of traffic. Is that something that the town really thinks is in its best interest? And I think the thing is we have to look, you know, why are we here? We're trying to advance what we believe as our community. And I just don't think that the retail sale of marijuana in the town of Cheshire would do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks again for your time. I'm Tim Slocum, 1285 Lilac Court in Cheshire. And thank you, Mr. Kurtz and members of the commission. I know you got a big job that got handed to you, and I know how hard this can be. I know you didn't create the law for selling cannabis. It'll all state, all credit goes to our state legislatures for enabling this. I appreciate the efforts you've already committed to making some determinations as to where best to allow cannabis distribution operations in Cheshire. I think you have proposed a plan for allowing retail operations in northwest industrial zones. Towns may get 3% of something based on what I have read. I don't know if this is a direct portion of a sales tax or if it's a percentage of profits. I just don't know that. Perhaps you could tell me. This could potentially add revenue, but the state did this with gambling too. And the share the town gets from this Mohegan money has declined steadily since its program inception. When I became aware of the process, I knew the town was asked if it wanted to consider this, say no, or put a moratorium or in the future consideration. This did land in your hands. I'm opposed to opening up our town to cannabis operations on a couple of grounds, which I've enumerated here, and you'll get a copy, I assure you. Cannabis is no longer the snap, crackle, pop of my younger years. It's potent, it tastes good, it comes in gummy and cake form. You can vape it. It's still illegal under federal law. When first introduced, Cheshire could have no more than one grower and one retail operation. At least on the retail side, it is now unlimited within the town's prescribed zoning district by change in state law. From what I have read, it takes huge amounts of cash to start a store. It all seems to be coming from outside money, not local investors. There are 169 communities in Connecticut, and we have multiple cities nearby. Using Meriden as an example and soon Waterbury, driving to these become very short trips for local residents to shop for cannabis. While the legislation restricts consumption to 21 years and up, we know students in our school system, as well as adults, consume and abuse this product now. Any addiction is terrible, whether it's drugs, alcohol, or gambling. The town's human services department, the school system, has had to expand staff levels to deal with all of the myriad problems, anxieties, etc. within their lives. But it doesn't end there. Older folks use and abuse too. And we can count on hundreds of cautionary public service advertisements paid for the state for the users to be responsible. Meanwhile, law enforcement is hamstrung, that is, when having to deal with cannabis. Anyone can look to other states that have done this, where homelessness is increasingly on the rise and dereliction of personal responsibility is in the toilet. The town can avoid at least some of the problems by just saying no, with no undue hardship to its residents. Thank you for your thoughtful consideration.
Robert Ham, 633 Cortlandt Circle, and thank you for your time, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I respectfully request that we do not approve marijuana sales in the town of Cheshire. We heard eloquent testimony by Mr. Slocum and the gentleman before him as to some of the deleterious effects of marijuana on the population and how it does, whether we think it does not or not, seep into children under 21 years old. Driving down the road, I see any number of people who are distracted or poor drivers, and one doesn't know if that's because they're paying attention to a cell phone or something of that sort. I suspect that, again, as Mr. Slocum suggested, that it's somebody's under the influence of something, whatever it might be. We have no way of testing for it. We have no way of really understanding what the bad long-term effects are for it. Simply because the state has said it's legal doesn't mean that Cheshire should follow along with that. I'd like to see us have a stand, take a stand, a moral stand perhaps, and certainly a stand in terms of fiscal responsibility. The negative effects in terms of the cost to the town, to the city and the state, or the cities around us in the state, are again unknown, but they're certainly out there to be discovered if we wanted to look into it. I would also suggest that if it's a revenue issue that we're considering approving marijuana sales in Cheshire, maybe we ought to look a little bit harder at how we reduce our budget and spend less money in some form or manner. I would suggest that to Cheshire. I would suggest that to the entire state of Connecticut. Thank you.
Hi, Eliana Orlinsky, 940 Ward Lane. The legalization of marijuana in our state has resulted in a reduced perception of harm on the part of the youth and their parents. The fact that it can be prescribed medically has led young people to believe that if they're suffering from anxiety, depression, and other issues, marijuana can help. Although the CT legislation is regarding adult cannabis use, we all know that it's going to affect the youth. Thank you.
Tucker Deming, 230 Oregon Road. Well, I rise in opposition to any sale of marijuana in our fair town. These gentlemen and ladies have explained my position quite well. No need for me to go further, but welcome to future shock here.
Pam Salamone, 659 Cornwall Avenue. I also rise in opposition to this. We've heard about what we know. It's not like there's anybody in this entire place, the committee, anybody in the audience who doesn't know what it's going to do to the town. It will bring in, I'm going to say it, less desirable folks into town. You know, we've seen what it's done in Colorado, if anyone's looked at it. We've seen what it's done in Massachusetts, as someone just mentioned. It becomes a disaster. You have a rise in homelessness. You have a rise in crime. We're already seeing enough of that. We don't need more of that. But bottom line for me, honestly, is our kids. And I don't really hear this young lady, I commend her for coming up. I don't hear anybody really speaking out about the kids. There's not one person in this entire room who doesn't know that making this easier to get is bad for the kids. If you care about these kids and we care about their future, okay, we would not make it any easier to get any kind of drug for them. We'd be helping them to live wholesome, quality life for kids. Let them be. Stop bringing this garbage in. Thank you.
Good evening, Amy Borden, 35 Pear Lane. I just have a couple of comments more than questions of things that perhaps maybe haven't been considered. First of all, unlike alcohol, there is no reliable field sobriety test for marijuana intoxication. The National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration conducted a study in 2017 that concluded smoking or the intake of marijuana does cause driver impairment. Drug recognition experts, or DREs, are often relied upon and requested at the scene of an accident or if someone is pulled over and suspected to be high or under the influence to conduct evaluations and determinations. So one question that I have for the commission is, does Cheshire employ one of these DREs or drug recognition experts? If not, do we plan to? Because I feel that if we don't have a drug recognition expert, if the commission decides to approve the sale of recreational cannabis, we are not prepared to enforce such incidents where we have accidents and speeding, people causing accidents or involved in an accident. And there's a lot of talk about the revenue that comes from the sale, the recreational sale of marijuana. And I guess my question is, will the perceived revenue from these facilities just offset the costs to ensure that the laws are being enforced? A quick statistic, 30% of chronic marijuana users admitted to using while driving. So one interesting thing that I found that I think is worth mentioning as well is the list of towns that have declared prohibition for the recreational sale of marijuana. And those include Avon, Bethlehem, Woodbury, Wolcott, Southington, Bridgewater, Bethel, Newtown, Prospect, Middlefield, Clinton, Old Lyme, Groton, Weston, Wilton, Westport, New Canaan, and Greenwich. And I think that Cheshire falls right in line with a lot of those communities in terms of the residents that we have here, the types of small businesses that we have here, the way that we value our youth, our children, and want to protect them from drug use and addiction. Which brings me to my next and one of my final points is, if we do start to see addiction in our community, if we do have this pass and allow the recreational sales of marijuana, do we have a plan to handle the burden to our local society? Will Chesapeake offer addiction services? Do we have a plan to handle the inevitable downside of dependency and addiction? I think in 2023, it's awfully naive of us to pretend like all marijuana use is medicinal. In fact, it's very hard for some doctors even to distinguish whether someone is using it medicinally or using it recreationally. So I think that if we're talking about revenues and we're evaluating the revenue that's generated from the sales of and the purchases of these recreational products, that we do keep in mind that there are some costs, very real costs to society that are monetary and moral, and we will be responsible for what happens to the next generation based on the decision that this commission makes for recreational sales of marijuana. Thank you.
Tom Bartley, 60 Brigadoon Drive. I guess there are two aspects to this I found interesting. First, is the community is asserting itself, at least this particular group here, in terms of our opinion about the sale of marijuana, retail sale of marijuana in town. We have an opportunity to be able to reassert our independence from a statute that almost nobody in this room had an influence over when it was originally passed. We just went through a hearing. We have housing coming into the town that many of us would have objected to because it's inconsistent with some of the character that we've come to rely on for Cheshire. So I think the first point is we have an opportunity to reassert a level of independence from the state statute that we should think about very seriously. Second, I tried to de-emotionalize the conversation with myself. I'm a child of the 70s. Figure that one out. So I tried to do a cost benefit in my own head. A lot of people have explained what the potential costs are, which we can enumerate, but can't assign a dollar value to. There's an emotional value. There's a moral value. There's a financial value that we cannot put a number on because we can't figure out what the economies are right now for the sales. But we can be pretty sure of the costs. We can be pretty sure of the moral cost that goes along with encouraging the sale of a product that many of us think are detrimental to the children, to our families, and to us. A lot of studies are starting to come out about the detriments of the heavy use of marijuana. I think science will actually give the lie to this poor legislation 10 years from now, but then it's going to be too late. So I come out against this for both those reasons. First, the cost benefit doesn't add up. I can't see any benefit to the town, but we can project a whole series of different costs. Secondly, it's an opportunity for you as our elected representatives to push back a little bit and take advantage of the statutory space that this legislation has given us. Thank you.
Doug Noble, 30 Jesse Court. Sir, I have a question to begin with. So there's multiple statutes on the table this evening. Is that correct?
Yeah, everything in our, new regulations and that these have not been adopted, but this is just stuff we've been working on. So, yeah, they're all on the table.
Okay, so I just want to, all right. So first, everyone's been talking about, sales in Cheshire. I'm totally against that. I have young kids. I know a lot of people in this room have young kids. You know, and there's an opportunity, you know, when I was a kid, hey, could you go in the liquor store, you get somebody old enough to go out there and give me a 6-pack or a bottle of booze or something. Yeah, we all tried that. We've done that, you know, in our younger years. You know, what's going to change with that? You got someone who's 21 years old, go to a dispensary. Hey, you know, my brother's best friend wants some. He's 16 years old. So again, I think from a moral standpoint, it's not for Cheshire. I think we're all in agreement in this room. On the other hand, since the state put this upon us from a growing standpoint, or an opportunity here is we're a farming town. We have fields, and you know, if we don't grow it here, you know, they're going to grow it somewhere else. So I don't think we should necessarily tie our hands, you know, on that aspect. I think if there's an opportunity for a farm to be set up here, we don't have to use it in Cheshire. We're just selling it out of Cheshire. You know, that's not going to impact our youth. But to actually have a sale in Cheshire of a dispensary, I am totally against. So if that's kind of a two-sided comment on that. But yeah, I don't want to see my children, you know, smoking pot. I'll be honest with you, I never tried it my entire life. I drank a lot in college, but I had some friends that were booze, big time users. And I actually lost a good friend of mine. You know, that was a gateway drug. You know, my friend Josh, she, you know, middle school started on pot and then got into heavier stuff, and he passed away about 4 years ago. So I have a kind of a personal story with that too. So that's my stance. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Kevin Wetmore, 103 Stonegate Court. And I was thinking about today why the room isn't packed, because I've heard from a number of people the concern about this. And I think it's a compliment to you folks, because people realize you live with what you have to decide. And you can make decisions that impact yourselves, and you may have children or grandchildren that live in town. And this is not a decision for the town. Recently, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal about just this problem of people bringing in these retail outlets. And what they were saying, and I think would add to what the gentleman just said about it being a gateway drug. And what the studies were showing is it doesn't make everybody addicted to it, but it does for a certain portion of the population. And the other problem they had mentioned was that in many places where they have opened up and have these units or retail outlets, it creates a whole new opportunity for the criminal element, because what you'll wind up doing is building a larger base of people who use marijuana. And because you have to have taxes and fees on it, people can come in and undercut that. So don't be a marketing force for the people who want to come in and sell it illegally. And we'd be kidding ourselves if we just not going to have a lot more people in town start using it and bringing people from other towns. Now, you're fortunately in a very good position for this decision, because you have a chance to say no and then wait and see what happens to other places that have said yes. And so I would recommend that you give some thought to doing that, because they're going to wind up having a lot more problems than they early anticipated. Thank you.
Jane Bate, 454 Riverside Drive. This is going to be quick. Basically, I think we shouldn't be talking about this as though it's just something out there on its own. It should be weighed against other possibilities. The obvious ones would be kids doing music, sports, all sorts of character building activities instead of the pot. But looking at this in this particular time and age with so many problems going on, I'm looking at what I think is going to be a shortcoming in terms of food supply. Could we not maybe redirect better and have people in our community teach those like me who don't know how to turn a backyard plot into a farm? I think it would be much more useful and bring none of the pain. Thank you.
Okay, I see a few more people in the room. Is there anyone else that'd like to? Sure, come on up to the mic, please.
Good evening, David Veliber, 402 Hayledge Court. First, I'd like to thank the commission for giving us this opportunity to discuss this very important topic. This is a potential sea change for what Cheshire is all about. And you as a commission are now entrusted to protect this community. I was hoping for maybe a little bit of an overview for the, to educate the public on the state law and regulations to help educate the community for those watching this. But in lieu of that, one thing that has come up is the revenue aspect of this new law, and maybe Mr. Glidden or anyone or at a chance could discuss sort of what the state of the law is currently as to what the town would receive. As we have, some have mentioned the revenue potential for this law. But I wanted to just get maybe somehow if there was someone to talk about that as to what that is, because there is some discussion as to what that is. I've heard 3%, but 3% of what, as Mr. Slocum had also raised the issue. I'm opposed to allowing marijuana sales in Cheshire. It's not in line with our community. As mentioned by others, it's going to be bad for kids. It opens the town to many things, including traffic, crime, and other issues. The state is looking at this as a revenue source for it, and it's dangling a carrot in front of the town in order to help them gain more money, only to leave us holding the bag when there's problems. You asked for public comment, and I think you're getting it, and it's unanimously opposed to this regulation. So please protect Cheshire, look out for Cheshire, and do not allow marijuana sales and reject any proposed regulations at this time. Thank you.
Mike, do you have any information on what the? Okay, we'll let everyone speak, and then maybe if you prepare something, and then let everyone know.
Don Walsh, 175 Contour Drive. First of all, thank you to the commission. This is, I don't envy your having to make this vote because I know it's a difficult decision. It may be a difficult decision. I have to be honest with you. I've been wavering on this thought and wondering about whether we could use the revenue. But having talked to many people, I am now pretty much against having cannabis sales in this town. I feel that the revenue we may get will be offset by the costs we may incur due to police protection and whatever else we may need for wherever the dispensary is, because as we all know that there will be people coming from out of town with the number of towns that are not allowing it to be sold in their town. So I feel, we really need to look at this as something that's going to, will it protect our children to some extent? Will it protect our adults to some extent? But people who want it will go other places, but why should we make it easy for them to have it here? I don't feel that it's good, but again, look it up to our state legislators who caused this. They put it down on our town saying, hey, it's up to you to whether you want it, but we're going to make it legal. However, the federal government still calls it illegal. It's a cash business, which could be a dangerous thing. So I think for all those reasons, I will ask you to not allow it to happen in our town right now. This town does have a certain appeal to it. And the last thing I want people to think is Cheshire is a place to go get your weed. And that's not who we are, and that's not who we should be. So thank you.
I'm Sylvia Nichols, 87 Deepwood Drive. And as I do to all of these meetings, I listen very carefully to all of the things that you've had to say. And for the most part, I agree with every single statement you've all made about the safety of our children and the character of the town. The one that stands out the most to me, however, is the position that we need to take a stand against what is delivered to us as a town by a body that we have no control over at the moment. And so I really feel like in this case, I like Mr. Ham's. What would happen if we said no? That imposes a lot of legalities that are difficult to deal with. So that's probably not right. But in this case, we have the opportunity to stand up and throw the tea into the lake. And this is the Tea Party that says we will not do this. So I would urge you, I would be in support of your not allowing this and making a stand and saying, this is our community. We would like control over what happens in our community. And this is one way that we have the opportunity to do that. We didn't have the opportunity with the 830G, but we do have an opportunity here. So I urge you to consider restricting that, not allowing it.
Okay, is there anyone else out there who would like to speak?
Good evening. I'm Beth Piezzo. I'm the library director. I am not a Cheshire resident. I live in New Haven at 108 Edward Street. I can speak anecdotally to what that experience has been like over the last year, not just since they opened a dispensary in April, but since the legalization of marijuana in our state, which I think is one of the most irresponsible and unfortunate decisions the state that I have been born and raised in has ever made. It's made me extremely disappointed to be a Connecticut resident to have that decision made. As in the last year, I can't walk down my street without cars going by and smelling marijuana. They're not smoking in the parks, they're not smoking on the sidewalks. I'm smelling it in the cars going by. I'm concerned that Cheshire will turn into the same thing if this is allowed. I'm also here because I'm a liaison to the Youth and Family Services Board. And I keep thinking about Michelle Picarello, our Director of Human Services, and all the hard work that she and her staff do day after day after day. I hear it at their board meeting. I listen to the things that they deal with. This is going to make their jobs so much harder. And she has given us some great statistics. So as your librarian, I can give you some of that information. Tax revenue of $1 will bring $4.50 of increased social resource expenses. That's the police, legal, social services, and mental health that people have been talking about. I can't imagine having spent decades of a career, as Michelle has done, trying to educate our youth and our parents about the dangers of drug and alcohol, to only have all of that work undone by our legislators' flick of a pen for the almighty dollar. We really don't want to sacrifice our youth or any of our residents' health, safety, or even their lives for money. We're not going to get much out of this. The tax revenue can only be used for streetscape improvements and other neighborhood developments where retailers are located, youth and employment and training programs, services for individuals released from DOC custody, probation, parole, mental health or addiction services, which obviously we're going to need, and community civic engagement efforts. Finally, as one other piece of information, legal states where they have retail pot are starting to ban. So 71.5% of Colorado has banned retail marijuana. So the state that was the leader in all of this, right, is now many of the towns have banned retail marijuana. 67% of California municipalities have opted out of retail pot. I respectfully ask, as your librarian, as someone who works with your youth every day, and who's someone who loves living here and who has seen what it does to a community, a town that I'm probably going to be moving out of due to some of the issues that it has brought, to not let that happen to this town. There is an increase in crime in New Haven, a lot of smash and grabs for people who need money for drugs. So please listen to your residents. I know I'm not one of them, but I do care about the town and I do care about our kids. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Last chance. I don't know, commission members, does anyone want to discuss anything tonight? I mean, we still have a lot to do. This was all about them, but if anyone feels a need to speak at all tonight, then I'm not going to hold anyone back, so.
I'd like to just take the time to thank everybody that came, and I personally agree with you. I'm one individual, but I totally agree with you. And I think a lot of the statements were very interesting. I never did drugs in my life, never had an interest, but I'm a smoker. I'm not the happiest person about that. But it starts small and grows. And if we ever allowed it, which I don't know anybody that would, people do it in their own house, we have no control, but the sad part of it is that I can smell it where people go, and I'm a smoker. I can't smell my own smoke, but I can tell when I'm around somebody that has whatever they call it, drugs, pot, whatever you call the name of the stuff they use. I don't know. I don't care. I never did drugs. Cigarettes were bad enough. But we do take a great interest. But as always, we're always tied to, That's my offering to you. So we all care. I know all these commission members and my colleagues, and we work hard at what we do, and we would do anything to stop that, I'm sure. But we're never going to stop people from doing what they do in their own homes. That's unfortunate. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Tully?
Yeah, I just want to echo what what Mr. Dawson said. So we have 30,000 people in Cheshire, and we have 15 people who came here, and thank you for coming here to give your opinions. We had 15, and we received 2 additional letters. So out of 30,000 people, we've got 17 people giving their opinion. I recommend, and the chair has the authority on this, but I'd recommend leaving this open so that we could possibly get more people come to our next meeting, so that we can hear from more of our fellow citizens here in Cheshire. Because it's a little disappointing. Again, 17 people out of 30,000 come and express an opinion on something that's this important. But again, I want to thank you all for saying what you said tonight.
Okay, anyone else? Mr. Selma? Yeah, oh yeah, sure, please.
Pam Salamone, 659 Cornwall Avenue. So I want to say, in terms of Mr. Natale, the good thing I could say about you guys, to be honestly, is I think those 30,000 residents don't feel they need to come, because I think they have full confidence in you guys that you know the right decision. People are busy. They have families, they have kids, as we all do, and I know you all do. They're working full time. I don't think there's anybody who thinks you actually need to hear from more than who you heard from tonight. I think they have full faith in all of you that you're going to make the right decision, and it's not going to take 1,000 people to come in here and say it to know where people stand.
Robert Ham, 633 Cortlandt Circle in Cheshire. And again, thank you for the comments, Mr. Natale. I agree with what Ms. Salamone said. You guys know better than I do, certainly because you're here putting in the work and the hard hours that you do. And thank you for that, everybody, and for all the other town council members and things like that. I 100% agree. I suspect, I don't know this, that you have a better turnout tonight on this issue than you have at most meetings. It's obvious that you have the town's attention, and the fact that you have only, as you say, 17 of the 30,000, it should be indicative that everybody here was opposed to this concept of having marijuana in Cheshire. And that, to me, I think that's good. It would have been lovely if we'd had one person stand up and prove the negative, saying, hey, I support it, here's why. That would have been a pretty good random sampling right there. But I fully agree that in the context of how things work in today's world, again, kudos to you for putting in the time, the effort, and thank you for that. I think we've heard the town. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And to make a comment, for usually the way it works with zoning is it really, although it does affect everyone in the town, it happens all the time and it's wrong. The only people we get that shows up at these meetings and speaks is the one where it happens right next to us. So if this happened to get approved and we put one of these things, which we're not going to do, well, we're not going to put it into a neighborhood, but if we put it into a neighborhood, this room would be full of people because they don't want to have it in their backyard. That's typically where we get these big crowds, is because although it affects the town by everybody, it affects everyone in the town, the only ones that usually come out and come out and give their points about it are the people who are directly affected by it. So I agree. I wish there was more people here too, but I don't know. People are busy. People are whatever. So
Exactly. So it's should come as no shock that the inattention and enemy of many of our citizens won't result in much attendance. So good to keep in mind that a War of Independence, 1776, only 3% were actively engaged in our effort. So thank you.
Thank you for the time. Thank you for the opportunity. Peter McAlinden, 220 Moss Farm Road. I came here to listen and to learn. And my wife and I can assure you, we also support all the speakers that have come to this microphone before in our position against having retail outlets here in Cheshire. We also come with probably a prejudice. I mean, the battle has already been fought in Connecticut, in Hartford, and lost. But we have in our family members who are in law enforcement who've warned us against this situation. We have one, a nephew who's a detective in New Jersey, another one who's a state patrolman in Florida. And I would very much not like to see what they are encountering on a daily basis with the passage and the usage of cannabis. But thank you for your time. And I'm just wondering, two things. Do you think there's a chance this will go to referendum, or do you think this is something you'll be able to decide yourselves?
A referendum might be a little tough. I mean, we have our moratorium is till, or what? Not moratorium. When do we have to enact some kind of regulation?
July.
July. Yeah. So it'd be a little tough for that. We've been working on this for a long time. I don't know the process of that, but I don't. Go ahead, Mr. Glidden. if
So,
you-
Mr. Chairman, just quick on the referendum question. If someone were to file a
Signatures.
petition,
Yep.
it could go under the state law. They have that option. They just have to fulfill the requirements of a referendum that's outlined in Public Act 21-1, which basically it's X days before with 10% of the registered voters of the community on a verified petition, and then that would go to general election. But that's not something for this body to be concerned with. You have either enact regulations, allow the use, or prohibit it, because the warning is the way that this statute's been drafted. If you fail to put in your regs, yes or no, it's treated. So for the sense of retail, it's treated like anywhere you allow retail. So it's as of right in some of the business zoning districts. It's allowed in other areas because that's the way this law is written. So you have to make a yes or no decision, and we have to do it by July.
So either way, so even if there was a petition that was out there, we're still going to act.
We got to act
on
independent.
no matter
because
what, and then it would go to referendum if they got enough signatures.
Let's say we did nothing and we let
We're
the-
not going to do nothing. That's not
But
going to
I'm
happen.
just saying, let's say we did nothing, we let the moratorium expire. Then if someone comes into my office, let's say the day after the moratorium expires and says, I would like to open a retail cannabis establishment in Cheshire, they can pick any property that retail is allowed and open it. And we are supposed to treat it just because we don't have regs that say either it's not allowed or it's allowed in very specific areas. We have to treat it just like retail, meaning you can't, it's not different or anything like that, and it can go where it wants. So it's a decision that the commission has to make, yes or no, and if you decide yes, make it structured.
Well, we are
Or make-
going to
or we
act.
can make
We are not going to let someone come in and tell us what's going to happen in this town. So we are definitely going to act. That's not even a question for this commission. But my question was, if we did say yes or no, could either side still go out and say, I've got enough signatures and
They
I'd
can,
like to have a
under
referendum?
Public Act 21-1, they
Okay.
could, independent of the actions of this body.
And even if they did it tomorrow, we're still going to vote for our July deadline. So, I mean, it's out there. If someone wanted to petition, they could.
Well, it seems like this room is fairly well united in a position. I haven't heard anybody volunteer to speak
In favor. Yeah.
in favor of sales in Cheshire, but you must receive comments other than from this situation. Do you find that you get persuasive arguments for the sale of marijuana in Cheshire? Have you been exposed
Just
to
for
any?
talking on the street, you mean?
Yeah.
I'm sure we've all had, different comments said to us.
Additionally, I could say, I mentioned two other pieces of correspondence that we've gotten or that we've received. And Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that anybody's spoken in favor in any of the correspondence.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Some people have raised a question about there could be some nominal tax revenue associated with cannabis sales. I decided to go look up a quote that I think applies. Nowadays, people know the price of everything and the value of nothing. And that's from Oscar Wilde. And I think that applies to whatever potential revenue we might gain from cannabis sales here in Cheshire.
So that leads into, do you want to speak a little bit of what you might know about?
So,
what
yeah, I could say, under the law, the way the revenues work. So you have the 6.35 sales tax existing. In addition to that 6.35, which all that money goes to the state, the town receives through DRS, Department of Revenue Services, an additional 3%, which is independent of the state's cut. So that's how the law was made. And then this, Beth brought up the 6 areas where the fund's going to be used. It's very specific where you can use these funds. This is not free money that goes into the general fund. There are only 6 buckets that any revenue that's generated from the sales can be used.
Okay. Anyone else out there wishing to speak? No? Commission members? Sure.
Like everybody else, I appreciate the public's involvement, but I really wanted to call out the young lady who came up representing our youth. And it's important to hear from you and for you to be involved. So thank you for what you did. I'm sure it wasn't easy. Thank you.
Okay. How does everyone feel about keeping it open? I know we have a pretty busy agenda.
Can we keep it open and still get the vote in for July before deadline?
Well, we still have to convene and make sure we go over everything because there's a lot of things in this that we're going to have to vote on.
Yeah.
What's that? Yeah, that's my opinion. I just don't want to, and I think we've heard a lot tonight.
If we did, I think we should stick to that. If we didn't, then it's an open question.
I don't remember. Do you remember what did we originally say? 2?
We originally said we'd keep it open for 2 if public participation was low. So, I mean, I guess
we're keeping it open. I
So, if I may, Commissioner Kurtz, this is almost the definition of a no-brainer. We just heard the constraints around the financial benefit to the town. We've heard virtually no benefit. None. No more amount of public conversation is going to change that argument. If we have an opportunity to close this down tonight, actually move ahead tonight, assert our independence tonight.
The public hearing comes into us. We are not voting on this tonight.
Okay.
Sorry.
Opportunity lost.
It's not, well, the opportunity is there, but we have time. We just wanted to hear from the public to, so we could incorporate the views of everyone in town.
Okay, thank you for the information.
It is, as far as tonight, there's nothing that says we're going to make any decisions tonight. But I guarantee you it'll be done before July 11th, and we will have the a decision made. It's just that we need some time to get that done. Correct? Am I not wrong? Yeah. To me, I would close the public hearing. If everyone up here says to me that they want to keep it open, if
I
we
think-
did say 2, I'm not gonna back
I
out
think
on
if
that
we had
either.
planned, had said there would be 2 public hearings, we should do the 2 public hearings, then make a decision after 2 public hearings.
But I thought that was if
Was
we
that
couldn't
said?
get everybody's input, right? It was to have that opportunity, but if you have what showed up, it's not like, I mean, everybody got to speak. I think we said, let's time it and plan it so we had that extra time if we had to push it over.
And we went out, we put it in the paper. We asked the local papers to advertise that we were having this hearing.
Put it in,
Did we say in the paper that we were going to have 2 hearings?
No.
mean,
I don't-
No. No, and actually, we put it out all over social media also. It was talked about, it's on the town website. It's a bunch of different places. So I'll amend what I said before. I'm okay closing it.
I'd like to make a motion that we close this hearing.
Second.
Okay,
First and second.
I don't think it's a vote. There's no vote to do a public hearing. I think it's just a decision
Yeah.
that I make to close. I mean, I do want to hear from Lou. Just,
I mean, I think if we'd had the opposite turnout tonight, we wouldn't be closing the public hearing. We'd give people a chance to come and comment on it.
the opposite turnout, like you mean many people here and not people have enough time to speak. Like everyone had,
Or if we'd had a whole room of people who said they were in favor of it.
Yeah.
I would be the same way. I mean, if to me, if everyone had their chance to speak tonight and everyone knew about it, and we've done everything we can with the coordination with the paper, with the people who put on social media, with whatever we do for the town.
Well,
To me,
we're not going to vote. If we were going to vote on it, I think people know what my view on the ultimate question is anyhow, because it's months ago. But I would vote to keep it open for another public hearing if we're going to vote.
Well, I got a
we
motion on the
are
floor.
not,
and a
listen,
second.
it's not a motion in a second. This is a
Well,
public
it
hearing.
is.
You can't, if I close the public hearing, I close the public hearing, but it's not a voted decision to close the public hearing.
Well, I don't know. You go by Robert rules of laws or what? What laws do you go
To
by?
close a public hearing.
So what did I just say? Want to close the public hearing.
I've never taken a vote to close a public hearing, ever.
May I speak?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so in my world of compliance, you've done what's called due diligence. Okay, we have a room full of people in 100% agreement. Like Jeff and everybody said, you've had the opportunity for people to come out here, advertising, social media. I put out emails to a lot of people in town, and this is the response. Again, I think people feel in confidence in your group. You guys are doing a great job. And I don't think it's necessary to continue this on if that's the concern of, not getting a voice out there. Again, I think you've provided what's called due diligence. Thank you.
Thank you. So I am going to close the public hearing tonight. Is there anything else that wants to be said by the people that are in the audience or by any of the commission members? Now would be the time. Okay, nothing. Thank you, and close the public hearing. I'll take a motion to please. And we do have a regular meeting to do, so if we could, just quietly, if there's going to be conversations, do it outside or just do it outside the room because it's a little tough for us, so. Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion to, are you leaving? Oh, motion to adjourn the public hearing? Motion by Mr. Vitale, seconded by Mr. Mercado. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. I'll give him a sec to get out of the room. Okay, I'd like to call to order the regular meeting, planning and zoning for Monday, May 8th, 2023. Can I get a motion to accept the minutes from the public hearing and regular meeting from April 24th, 2023? Move by Mr. Mercado, second by Mr. Natale. Discussion, comments, changes, anything that people have? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Motion carries unanimously. Communications. We had our newsletter from the Connecticut Federation of Planning and Zoning. Everyone got it? Anybody questions or comments on?
Yeah.
on?
I just had one communication that I received late today from Jeff D'Onofrio concerning wage versus et al. Versus the Planning and Zoning Commission. They had a hearing on a motion to withdraw, and the case has been withdrawn. So we no longer have that.
We got something?
Jeff emailed me a copy of the order later today. I'll email it out to the commission.
And what was it again? I'm sorry.
That was the original appeal for Wallingford Road.
Oh, okay.
The first application. It's withdrawn. It's gone. So.
Okay, unfinished business. Do we have a motion for Lisa Calhoun
Yes.
and the ice cream? Mr. Dawson is recused.
So am I.
Okay, motion to approve I'll wait until everyone leaves. I'm sorry. A motion to approve application for a special permit on behalf of Lisa Calhoun, applicant, Sherwood Dawson, owner. Applicant's requesting special permit pursuant to section 3041 of the Cheshire zoning regulations for an ice cream parlor located at 500 South Main Street, Assessors Map 71, Lot 88. Approvals based on revised floor plans prepared by the applicant at April 10th meeting of the Cheshire Planning and Zoning Commission. The Cheshire Planning and Zoning Commission finds based on the record, the applicant has demonstrated compliance to section 30.41 and section 40 of the Cheshire zoning regulations.
Move, Mr. Mercado. Second by Mr. Selmont. Discussion on the motion. Mr. Mercado.
Yeah, I think it fits right in to the town, little ice cream shop like that. I like it.
You just shut the doors.
I know. Some things were brought up during the hearing, and that was the children being across the street or the kids being across the street at the high school, crossing back and forth Route 10. I know they allow parking over there for the high school. There's a lot of high school events that happen over there. Town events happen where they park in the high school and go back and forth. I think it's maybe time that that our town committee looks at doing something to make it safer, whether it's some kind of tunnel under Route 10 or a bridge like they have at a lot of colleges and schools. I know there was one proposed years back at the academy to go across from Wallingford Road or whatever that Academy Road there. We need to look at that for the safety of these kids going back and forth. But I think it is a good idea and it fits in nice there. Thank you.
Any other, Mr. Selmont?
So just going to talk about this particular application because we already went through the zoning. The location of it and the traffic and everything else, the ice cream shop in this spot is not going to drastically affect, or it's going to nominally affect any traffic. And I was trying to have trouble with this application because I was surprised so many people were against an ice cream parlor. And then it dawned on me, I lived across the street from an ice cream parlor. And it had zero effect on traffic, especially since the business was predominantly between 5:30 and 9:30 at night. I'll be voting in favor of it. I don't really see any negative to it. It's if that doesn't go in there, something else will. It'll generate traffic. It's it became an easy vote when I realized I lived across the street from an ice cream parlor. So. I do want to thank everybody that came out for it, and I'll be voting yes for it.
Mrs. Downs.
Yeah, I'll be voting no. And the reason is because of the people on Chipman Drive who are opposed to it because of traffic. I think if the applicant had been willing to put in a fence so that the traffic couldn't cut through out onto Chipman Drive, it might have been a little bit easier to vote for, but with the amount of traffic and with the people asking us not to put that through, then I am going to go with no.
Thank you. Mr. Natale.
Yeah, this is a tough spot for me. I voted against the zone text change for R20A. I didn't think it should be done across all the R20A on Route 10. But at the last public hearing that we had for that, I also said that I thought that this was a good idea. It was a good spot. I think that being next to the park, being across the street from the high school was, again, a good spot for, excuse me, a good spot for an ice cream shop in town. It's an amenity down there near the park. I think you get a lot of foot traffic going in there. So again, I apologize if it seems contradictory. I was against the zone text change, but that was approved. So I'm looking at this separately, and I'd vote in favor of this because, again, I think it's a good location, and I think it's they'll do a good job down there.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak? No? Okay, so I guess I'm last. Yeah, I vote in favor of the zone text change. I do believe the ice cream shop is good for the R20A. However, in this instance, I tend to agree with Mrs. Downs. In the public hearing, there was nothing said that either of them had the right, either property owner had the right to use either one of the parking lots. And I thought the fence was a very good situation, which would have taken care of that. I mean, to me, knowing that property, when people enter it, they enter it from the front, and when they leave, they enter it on Chipman Drive. And I saw no reason why the fence was not the fence that was asked for was not decided to be put up, which would have protected both businesses from whether there would be too much parking on one side or too much parking on the other side, or the vehicle movement throughout the site. So for that reason, I'm going to vote no on the application. So being that, I think it would be wise to use hands. All those in favor of the motion, raise their right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those opposed, 2. The motion carries 5, 2, and 2 recused. All right, moving on. Number 2, do we have, I know we have motions for Vessel Holdings. Can we hear those, please?
First of the zone text amendment. Motion to approve petition for a zone text amendment on behalf of Vessel RE Holdings LLC and Vessel Technologies Incorporated. Applicants, Andrew Gomes, Esquire, agent. Applicants are requesting new Section 44B Housing Opportunity District, HOD, to be added to the Cheshire zoning regulations pursuant to General State Statutes 8-30G. The effective date for the change is May 27th, 2023.
Anyone? Move, Mr. Talley, seconded by
Downs.
Mrs. Downs. Thank you. Discussion on this motion. It's pretty easy one. So all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any, Mr. Natale? Anyone abstaining? Motion carries 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Motion carries 8-1. Next one, please.
Motion to approve petition for a zone change on behalf of Vessels RE Holdings LLC, Vessels Technologies Incorporated. Applicants, Andrea Gomes, Esquire, agent. Applicants requesting to place the subject property, 146 Realty Drive, in the HOD, or Housing Opportunity District, pursuant to General State Statutes 830G. Property located at 146 Realty Drive, Assessors Map 28, Lot 146. The effective date for the change is May 27th, 2023.
Move, Mr. Talley. Seconded by Ms. Downs. Thank you. Any discussion on this motion?
I mean, just for the record, I think we need to point out that there's very limited bases for voting against this. There was no evidence that would support any of those bases, and therefore, I think we have to vote for it.
Yeah, I'd like to speak. Well, I'll wait for the next one, but I wanted to make a similar comment.
Okay. On this one, I mean, it's I don't really understand the HOD thing, but the fact that staff and our town attorney agrees it's the way it's supposed to be done, and that's the way most of them are done. I guess that's just the way it is. So all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Mr. Natale, anyone abstaining? Motion carries 8-1. Last one, please.
All right, motion to approve application for site plan approval on behalf of Vessel RE Holdings LLC, Vessel Technologies Incorporated applicants. Andrea Gomes Esquire agent, applicant is requesting site plan approval per General State Statute, Section 830G for multifamily community development for the property located at 146 Realty Drive, Assessors Map 28, Lot 146. Approval is based on plans titled Site Development Plans, Vessel Multifamily Housing Realty Drive, Cheshire, Connecticut, prepared by H&H Engineering with a revision date of April 17th, 2023. Site plan approval is subject to the following conditions. One, final plan shall incorporate the following changes, which are illustrated on the plans titled Alternative Site Layout Plan dated April 24th, 2023, and prepared by H&H Engineering Associates. Attached to this motion is Exhibit A. The location of proposed building remove approximately 3 feet to the west, close to the Route 10. B, 5 additional parking spaces will be added along the eastern side of the proposed building. 2, applicants are to explore adding no parking signs on Realty Drive frontage with Realty Drive Association for consistency with association documents. 3, snow shall be properly stored in snow storage areas depicted on the final site plan. All excess snow is to be hauled from off-site from snow storage areas. 4, lease documents are to note the following conditions. Tenants of one-bedroom units are limited to 1 car per one-bedroom unit, while tenants of 2-bedroom units are limited to 2 cars per 2-bedroom unit. If a unit does not require a parking space, the applicants shall be allowed to allot the additional parking space to another unit as long as the total number of spaces allotted in all lease documents does not exceed the number of bedrooms in the community. Applicants shall be responsible for enforcement of said conditions as part of the lease with tenants. 5, building exterior will be gray with wood tone panels. If the applicant wishes to change the building color, request is to be made in writing to the commission with this color sample of substitute materials. The proposed change may be approved administratively by staff as noted is provided in condition number 7 below, with the commission's input. A new public hearing for said request shall not be required. 6, if the town of Cheshire or regional water authority staff determine that a looped water line is necessary for the proposed community, a looped connection shall be constructed internal to the site. 7, the Planning and Zoning Commission authorize staff to approve minor modifications to site grading, landscaping, drainage, building exterior, or lighting on their behalf. Said requests are to be made in writing to staff prior to implementation. 8, the planting list on planting plan dated March 8th, 2023, and prepared by Thomas Garofalo Landscape Architect LLC shall be revised as follows. A, Carl Forster reed grass or CKF shall be replaced with Little Blue Stream SLB. And B, the purple maiden grass, which is MSP, shall be replaced with the prairie drop seed, SHD.
Moved by Mr. Natale, seconded by Mr. Selma. Were you second or? Oh, sorry. I need a second from Mr. Selma. And you have the talk.
So I just want to make it very clear on all 3 of these, I don't approve of any one of them. However, there is no evidence based on the 3 things that we can decline for, health, safety, and environmental. Another gentleman previously had mentioned, why don't we just say no? Why don't we just vote no? You know, buck the trend. And as much as I'd like to do that, you would basically put the town and saddle the taxpayer with a costly court fee that we're going to end up losing anyways. This is a weird spot to be in, to have to say yes when you really don't want to. It's kind of unnerving. And I just want to make that clear to everybody and to the public and let everybody understand that. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Burkow. And then, ladies first. I'm sorry, I didn't look that way, so.
Just two things. Thank you for changing number 8. I appreciate that. I have to say, though, I am a little disappointed that the caretaker or whatever the person is not going to be housed there in the building. I felt like, or I thought I heard Mr. Levy saying at the original meeting that that was part of the whole plan, that someone would be living in the building, that they would be a tenant there, and that they would be in charge of things. I may not have listened as carefully as I should have. I may not have read every single sentence in all of this, but I felt like I was led to believe that there would be an on-site caretaker. Maybe not those exact words, but I felt like Mr. Levy alluded to that fact, which gave me a little bit more of a warm and fuzzy feeling about, okay, everything's going to be fine there because the person in charge is living there, which gives it a little bit more, it's my backyard, I'm going to take care of it, I live here, it's important to me. That being said, it sounds like it's not included. You're intending to do that. Good intentions can go astray. So I'm disappointed in that. It's not going to stop me from voting for it because I can't change it. I don't like it, but I can't change it. So I'm just disappointed. I feel like that was sort of stated and then it's not in it anywhere. It's not in writing. So your intentions, I guess, we'll see how they pan out. And in the future, when this is built, and we'll see if the person is a tenant that's living there and it is their backyard and they take care of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Ricardo, then
No, you go
Tesco.
first.
So I feel like Mr. Salmont, I feel the state is holding us hostage. This is not against the applicant of my frustration. The applicant's actually done what they can to make it look a little better, feel a little better. I do wish the applicant came under our affordable housing. It would fit in the town. We'd feel a little more comfortable. Maybe there was even a possibility that we could have increased by special permit how many units were in that small little area, but had it fit in better and look better. We have to vote for this. Yes, possibly. I'm one that, there's the Constitution state, and what's happening in Hartford is stepping all over our rights. I feel it's incorrect. We do spend a lot of money in this town. Maybe we should spend the money to go to court and push this off and see how long we can hold it off until maybe it goes away. I don't know. I wish I had those numbers. I wish I knew what it would cost, how long it would take. Again, it's not against the applicant. It's against what I feel is going on in Hartford and how they're destroying the state. But we'll see how I vote. Thank you.
Mr. Tesco.
I mean, nobody on this commission is against affordable housing. We've spoken in favor of it in our plan of development and everything. The issue here, I think, is just that it's extreme. I think if this building had been for 40 units, it would have been a whole different discussion rather than 70 units. I mean, looking at the building, the building does have a lot to suggest itself. I mean, they've said today that it's going to be a solid building. That's why I asked about it. It's not going to fall down. It seems to be a safe building from fire perspective. It's supposed to have solar panels on the top that are going to take care of most of the electricity. I mean, in a lot of respects, it's a very interesting building. It seems it's too much building for 1.3 acres on Route 10 in Cheshire. That's the problem. But I think that this also shows, as a couple people pointed out in the past, it shows, I think, in some respects, the weakness of 8-30G. I mean, it really does a minimal amount for affordable housing. It allows developers, and this is not criticism, this is the American way. It allows people to come in, get a density increase, and have a profitable building because you're doing a few affordable units. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's how we do things, but it shows the weakness of that statute too. But anyway, it may be, I think it will be a nice building, and there probably are some people that will want to move into this. I mean, I don't think I'd want to live in a 520 square foot apartment, but some people will think that's fine, and they'll move into Cheshire and have a good life. So I don't think we have to feel bad about this, but it's just it was too extreme. That's my only feeling. I'm going to vote for it as I have so far.
Yeah. Any, Mr. Talley?
Yeah. I'm going to echo what everybody else said. I'm not going to repeat it. I agree with Mr. Salmont. I don't think it's place for it. I don't like that 830G allows developers, and again, just as Mr. Tedesco said, nothing against this developer, talking developers in general, to build the bare minimum number of affordable housing units to get a higher density to make more money. The state puts us in a bad position. They force us, whether we call it rolled over, ignoring our regulations, forcing us to do something. They're doing all the above. And I don't appreciate that. But Mr. Salmont said it better. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not going to say the same thing everybody else said. I mean, ask the question. I didn't understand it before then, but in number 4, when it says the 1 car per 1 bedroom unit and they're limited to, and 2 cars are limited to, I think it's crazy, but whatever, if that's the case. But the thing I don't like about it is the applicants are responsible for enforcing and handling the situation. So there's no teeth for the town to say when the parking is all over the street, because if you have 2 people living in one of these units, they're going to have 2 cars. I don't know. That's whatever. I know we can't say no. So I thought maybe the town had some teeth in it to say there's too many cars in your parking lot, not the applicant being responsible for enforcing to handle say conditions as part of the lease with the tenants.
So that gives, actually, it's belt suspenders. So with the lease documents, those tenants are now, they're on the hook to follow that parking plan, basically. And if they're parking all over the place and the
But it's
town
the
is-
applicants, well,
I mean, they hold the lease for these for future tenants, and this really, it ties their hands on the sense that, like if I'm renting a 1 bedroom, it's me and my wife, and we both of us have cars, and we didn't declare that at the time of when we signed.
I understand that, but if there's 120 cars in this unit or this building nightly, can the town say to them, hey, you have to take care of this? Is that what it means in number 4? So we have.
It gives us an added protection in addition to, you have a private road. They can't park on the private road. They can't park in front of Route 10. This is just belts and suspenders, an
Okay.
added layer of enforcement.
Okay. All right, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? 2. And anyone abstaining? Motion carries 7-2. Thank you. All right, we're not doing anything with 5. 6 is for 522. 7 is for 522. 522. Everything left is for 522, right? Krem Holdings, is that the lawyer that's being down by the package store down there
No.
on Maple?
They're a management company. They're in Southwick right now. They're leaving. And they're moving their office up to
Oh, okay.
Maple.
All right.
Management company?
Property management.
Anything else to come in front of the commission tonight? No. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Mercado. Second by Mr. Natale. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.